Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for stopping by. I haven't got a clue what that big bright light is up in the sky. I haven't seen that for a while. I think it's called the sun, and we could do with some. I'm going around my plants today, so I'm going to film a few bits and pieces as I go. And the first thing that sprung to mind is it's not a long way off thinking about repotting some orchids. Now, I've got no emergency repots on the list, so nothing is desperate. And as a consequence, nothing's getting done now. So we're not going out in the kitchen and doing all that stuff. But first couple I picked up that the thoughts came along. This is my Peter Comp. It's coming to the end of its blooming now. It has, somewhere, one new growth. It also hasn't been repotted since I got it, so it's on the list to be done. And they say a good time to repot is when it's pushing out new growths. Well, with me, that's a yes and no, because it has to be qualified. It's a very bland statement to say repot when your new growths start, because not all orchids push out their roots at the same time as their new growths. So you need to observe, and observing this, that new growth has not got new roots yet. Now, bearing in mind, I don't know what it's potted in. It looks like some of that, it's wet at the moment, I've just watered it. It's that coconutty type stuff, which I don't like. Now, some orchids have sensitive new root tips, and if they start to grow and they find something they don't like, they stop. Yeah? So you could lose a flush of new roots as a consequence of having some crap media underneath them. This one, however, has grown well in its pot, so it obviously didn't mind that, or it wouldn't have done that, and it mass bloomed, you know, so it's okay for a bit. So I'm not going to repot that yet, but it's on the list. Okay, so that's the sort of thoughts I put in. Okay, another one that springs to mind, I've just picked this up to water it. This is Shelob Tolkien, and this has got a lot of new growths on it. This one's pushing out well, and this is a Miltassia. And again, we get into that. What's the milt bit on the front then? I know the brassica bit, but is it Miltonia or Miltoniopsis? Now, I would say the fact that it's hybridized with Miltassia, it's more likely to be Miltonia rather than Miltoniopsis. Miltoniopsis does creep into hybrids, but it's less common than Miltonia's creeping into hybrids. I can look it up. Anyway, this one is on the list to be repotted, and I'm going to stall. Although I don't like the media it's in, and it is pushing out some new growths, the new growths haven't got new roots yet. It's also heading towards the middle of January. That's not the best time in the world to repot something. Chances are you'll stall it, because, you know, here in the UK we've got such short days at the moment, and often they're very dull. The light levels are very low. So it's not going to feed itself very well through the photosynthesis process. And if you're always going to damage a few roots when you repot, especially if you clean them right off and do the hydrogen peroxide thing like we do. You know, the chances are I'd stall the plant. So I'm going to delay repotting until a more suitable time, even though the plant says now. Roger says no. I'm going to hold it. And I will repot it, and it's probably not worth filming, but I might do, you never know. I might be in the mood to get in the kitchen. But yeah, I'm going to hold that one. That's not going to get done now. And I'll pick on a few more as I go round, as I see things that are changing. It's the sort of watering day today, so it'll be bits and bobs, but we'll see how we go. But I'm not doing that one for at least another month, and probably nearer 6 weeks. End of February, beginning of March would be a brilliant time to hit that plant, because it's going to have good day lengths, yeah, and there will be some root damage, but it'll be in a better position to recover itself at that time of year. Now, that's another one of those bland expressions that you get on care sheets. Repot your plant in the spring. Well, yes and no. If spring coincides with your plant's needs to be repotted, then do it in the spring. You know, if it's a cool grower, the best time is not in the middle of summer. Again, because it'll be under stress. It likes it cool and you're keeping it a bit warm, so go steady. But yeah, look at your plant. Let your plant tell you. That's what I do. So, moving on, we'll see what else we come across. Let's have a quick look around some of the ceramis ones. All of these will be repotted. They're coming out of the ceramis, but I've said that before. Now this is one of the Sturbics, and that's one hell of a new growth. Yeah, so that was it was a dying plant basically, put in ceramis to see if it would recover, and it has. So big tick for ceramis there. There's some good roots pushing out from that new growth, and when I repot it, it'll take. This one has far more back bulbs, and the new growths are weak. That's one of these cases where there's too many back bulbs. The plant needs to be split. I'll do that when I repot it. It's an Alicera, and I must not lose this one. I'll pop up the bloom. It's incredibly special to me. I must try and save this plant. And I think to save this plant, it needs rejuvenating. Yeah? So it needs coming out of the ceramis. Yes, I'm doing that anyway. And it needs, where the new growths are, it needs some of the back bulbs taken off. I mean, it's like this little new growth here is incredibly weak. In fact, this is two separate plants, I remember now. So this plant's got 5 back bulbs and a weak new growth, so it's not doing well. This new growth round here is quite good, and that's on a better piece of plant. There's another new growth just starting there. Anyway, swing it round. What have we got here then? I recognise those types of leaves. That's a Sherry Baby, I bet. Where's me tag? I don't know why I'm bothering to look. I know it is. Yeah, it says there, Sherry Baby. I have 2 of these. The other one's growing away at great guns. And this one has some new roots heading on down in there. Now, when it comes out of there, I'll deal with that. Now, this plant was in a state of recovery for several years, and for some reason I didn't want to lose it. I'll put a pop-up of the picture. The blooms are huge, but they're not my favourite. The colours look washed out for the type of shape of the bloom. There are other much bolder looking ones around, but nonetheless, it's a good new growth. Now this thing's decided to get the ropes out and climb. This is the Sweet Sugar. It's not Oncidium. I'll put a name up. Now this pushed out some new roots, and they decided not to grow down in the pot, but some of them did. So it will have some roots in there. And again, I like the plant. I like the blooms. I don't want to lose it, but it needs to come out of the ceramis, and it needs to go over sideways, if you see what I mean. You know, it's at that angle at the moment. It needs that doing to it so that the base of this gets much closer to the media. Now, being an Oncidium type, roots branch. So even though that root has lost its tips, you could see it branches. So any damaged roots here I can trim, and the chances are that when those roots are in some media, it'll stimulate them to branch. So that's that little tray. I'll dig the other one out quickly. Now that's a shame. That one's gone since I last looked at it. The new growth, as you can see, has rotted, and so has that one. So that's a loss. We'll have that out now while I'm at it. That's a shame. I'll put a pop-up of the bloom. That was a beautiful miniature Oncidium, White Cloud. That was a smasher. I will try and replace that because I like it so much. It's one of those that opens pure white and then turns yellow. I will try and replace that. Now why that went I don't know, but it has. So -1 here. This one is this is a Bialara. I've been struggling with this one for years. Why I struggle with it I don't know. Probably because it's got bloody gorgeous flowers on it. But that's a reasonable new growth there. That's a failed new growth. There's another new growth coming out down there at the base. So not lost, but not good. You have to bear in mind, last time I got these out to water them, I had a lot of mould on the surface, mainly where it's either moss or algae. I'm not an expert, but the green stuff forming on the top was the bit that went mouldy. Now I sprayed it with a fungicide, and it seems to have cleared it up, so it's done the job. This is another one of the Sturbics. This is a purple one, and again, it's not a brilliant looking plant, but the latest new growth is good. So get that out of this stuff and get it in a pot, and I'll be happier even if the plant isn't. Now this is a Twinkle. This is not a happy plant. Yeah, tiny little new growth there. That growth has just finished 2 flower spikes, so it was capable of flowering. That could have been more desperation than anything. Again, I don't want to lose it, so I'll try and recover it. And then we've got this, well, these things, quite honestly for me, they grow like weeds. This is a Maxillara tenuifolia. Now, this was bought as the yellow variety, which is, it's more like a semi-alba form in its true sense. But when it bloomed red, so it was nothing of the sort. And I shall have a go at the person I bought that from when I see them, and might get a replacement. This is my LC gold digger. This is the one that I threw away once. I actually threw it out under the hedge. And a few months later, there was this nice new shoot sticking up, so I decided to bring it back in. It would be nice to keep it. It's a lovely bloom. It's one of the nicer Cattleyas for me anyway. And that new growth has got roots. So again, that needs coming out, needs going into some chunky bark and setting itself up in a position where it can remain totally undisturbed for a nice long period of time, which is what I'm hoping to do when I get my clay pots. So yeah, all of the ceramis stuff is coming out of the ceramis, but not now. Again, it'll wait till the day lengths get longer and, you know, we're in a better position. So coming soon, and I mean, they'll all be much of a muchness. They'll have different stages of roots to look at and things like that. But yeah, it's a shame. Another one down. So for me, it wasn't a good experiment. Some plants have done well in it, and I know if I'd had the chunky ceramis, I'd have done a lot better. But that's all I could get, so we'll get them out and get them set up in a media that I prefer and I'm happier with. It's coming soon. Now I know when I whizzed round my plants last time, the poor old Masdevallias just got skipped over and almost ignored. And this is a strange one. This should be dead. This is Masdevallia vecchiana. I think it is, yeah, vecchiana. Now this is a cold grower, not cool, cold. This comes from pretty high up in the mountains and likes cool, clean, moist air. Now this time of year, that's not too bad in here. I won't say it's cold, but it's certainly cooler. And as a consequence, I think its stress level may have reduced enough that it might be going to give it a go. You can see that's a lot of new growth coming out. That was the last one that pushed on. There's a little one there, another one there, and 3 over there. So that might be able to get going enough to give it some strength to pull it through the summer. If not, it's probably going to fail. As I say, it shouldn't be alive in here at all, really. But I just thought I'd pick up on a couple of the Masdevallias. That's one of them, vecchiana. Beautiful bloom. Huge for Masdevallias, anyway. Lovely, vibrant orange. Just thought I'd have a closer look at one of the Restrepias. I'm not going to do them all. It was more of looking at an orchid type rather than a specific plant. That's what the new growths look like. They've got those lovely spots on the sort of bracts and sheaths, whatever you want to call them. So there's a couple of new growths down in there on this one. A word about Restrepias. If you've got a Restrepia that chucks kikis out like they're going out of fashion, it's too dry, air-wise, not necessarily root-wise. But in dry air, I find they are prone to kikis. Now you can break them off and stick them in a pot, they will grow. You know, it's a way of getting new plants, don't get me wrong. But the idea is to get the growth to come from the base and actually get new growths with strong, healthy new leaves that are not crinkled, not distorted. And if your new leaves are coming out and they open up clean, then you're doing okay. But they really do like high humidity. This is not an ideal windowsill plant. But anybody who's got an environment where the humidity stays pretty high and it doesn't get too hot, these little beauties will grow. And there are so many different sorts, you know. So just a quick look at a Restrepia type. They're supposed to stay constantly moist. But again, I find in the winter that I can let them get almost bone dry before I actually water them, and they do okay because they're not growing very fast in the winter anyway. So yeah, but in their active growing season they need to stay moist, and they need very high humidity around the plant, and if you can provide that, they'll grow and they'll bloom. They bloom on and off all the time. Those straggly little bits, I ought to trim those off really, those are ex-flower spikes. That's what it leaves behind, and capable of blooming a second time. If you look at that little top of that leaf there, it's got a straggly bit, that's where it's bloomed, and now it's pushing another bloom out from the same point. So even more than once from the same shoot. Yeah? So under normal circumstances, they produce a growth, it produces a leaf, and it blooms from the base of that leaf. That's how they work. And some can bloom more than once from that point, some don't. And you need new leaves to get new blooms. But yeah, and occasionally they'll put kikis out at the end of the leaf as well. New plants. So that's how they grow. Yeah? And quite honestly, if you can keep humidity good, they're easy. But then define easy. Easy to one person is dead plants to somebody else. So we all have our own what we think is easy. But these seem easy for me anyway. If we get a heat wave, they're going to struggle a bit. But without that, they'll do fine. While we're on Restrepias, I thought I'd just take a closer look at this one, because this has got everything you could have on a Restrepia on one single plant. That's a distorted new leaf. Yeah? Now, the main reason for that is lack of humidity in the air, or lack of moisture at the roots. Now, when I got this out, this was dry, and it shouldn't be. No, I mean dry, seriously dry. So a couple of the new leaves will have suffered as a consequence, but it's pushing out enough not to worry about it. Or not for me to worry about it anyway. There's nice new growth coming on there. From the base, that's where it's good. There's another one there. So it is pushing new growths out with their nice spotty patterns on them. I love those new growths, they're smashing. But there's a kiki, yeah? So, yeah. That's the point where the kikis come from. You can see the tiny, well, I expect I'm too close for this camera, but you can see the tiny little roots starting. They're not big enough to take that off yet, but you know, there's a kiki there. I'll probably just poke it straight back in the pot once it gets some roots. Yeah, so some distorted leaves on this one. There's one there. That didn't open clean, although that one looks like it got a bit of damage on it. There's another one there. However, a lot of the leaves are opening clean. So I now have to take this one on board. Although some of the others don't mind getting quite dry before I water them, this one doesn't like it. This one needs to stay wet. I mean, you can see those roots are tiny. They're really fine little roots. Oh, and another thing, Restrepias are not deep rooters, they're shallow rooters. Most of their roots float across near the top of the pot, so you don't need deep pots for these. You're better if you can get hold of shallow ones, or just crock the bottom of a larger, you know, a deeper pot and just leave the media near the top. That's where they root. They root near the base, and they push out sideways. Some go down, but they don't go too far. They're quite shallow rooters. Yeah, so that's got everything on it. It's got a kiki. It hasn't got any flowers at the moment, but it has only just finished blooming, so, you know, it has bloomed. Okay, so, you know, another look at a Restrepia. New growths coming from the base, that's what you want. It has got a kiki. That may be as a result of stress. Like I say, if they're not happy, they start throwing kikis. And this one has had a period where it wasn't so happy, where the new growth started to distort. So I need to keep this one moister, and will do from now on. Okay, last one to look at. This one is one of my more prolific bloomers. It puts a lot of blooms out. Keep the English simple. These big long words when I've only had one coffee. But this one again has got signs of stress. There is some distortion to new growths. They're not opening clean. Now there's two reasons here. This is me keeping this one a lot drier than I would like to. The reason is the media's breaking down. Yeah? So by allowing it to dry, that media can do less damage to the roots. But I'm suffering with some of the new growths as a consequence. I'm going to take the hit because I don't want to repot it now. Sorry, sunshine, you've got to wait at least another month, probably 6 weeks. Now during that time we're probably only looking at maybe 4 or 5 waterings, So it's not a big deal, but I will have to suffer a few distorted new growths. But then when it gets repotted, it should kick on, you know, and I can always trim those growths off if I don't like them. It puts them out at a rate of knots when it's growing well. But this one has lots of blooms. They're smaller than the others, but can't do it justice with this camera. This is where I could do with Rachel's camera and be able to get in close like a snowdrop video. This just gets down to about 7-8 inches and then just goes out of focus. That's as close as it will go. But anyway, so yeah, this one's got some kikis. Not all making it, but this one's got kikis and some distorted growth. That's how they look when they're not happy. Now this is not happy partly because I've dried it and then watered it again. It's allowing it to dry, is not doing it the world of good, but it's not stopping the new growths, and the media's breaking down, which isn't doing the roots any good. So you've got to come out of your pot probably sooner than later. Okay, so you know, like all other orchids, once the media starts to break down, the roots don't work as well. They don't like that acidity in the pot. I don't think there's any orchids like that. Certainly things like Paphiopedilums will just keel over, you know. So this one's suffering a little bit, but it's not gone too far. I'm not worried about it, I'm not panicking, but I've got my eye on it. If it starts getting any worse, I might have to take the bull by the horns and just repot it and blow the time of year. But it would do better if I wait some time. So we'll see how we go with that one. Okay, I'm just being silly now. The light's on out here, it's virtually dark. I made a boo-boo. The other bits that I'd filmed today somehow or other got deleted. And I haven't been on the wine yet. Soon, but not yet. So I'll redo those bits tomorrow, along with any other changes I find as I finish off watering. As I say, I won't prolong this in the dark. It's a bit silly, isn't it? So thanks for dropping by and everything, and I'll finish off this type of thing going round looking for changes and things tomorrow, when maybe we'll get some sun again. That was nice today to see the old sun. And as a consequence, I got a feeling the temperature outside is dropping like a stone. So it's going to be a cold night, frosty morning, I suspect. We'll see. Okay, see you tomorrow. Bye for now.